During his first national address, President Bola Tinubu announced the removal of fuel subsidy, putting an end to a debate that has gone on for years. But his declaration did not only end years of purported corruption going on in the petroleum sector, it immediately led to the hike of the pump price of the product. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited on Wednesday announced an adjustment in the pump price of petrol by nearly 200% to between 488 naira and 557 naira nationwide. This change in price is already having a chain reaction effect on the nation's economy, from the cost of transportation to foodstuff and other areas. The subsidy removal, which has the support of many Nigerians, is expected to free up more funds to cater for other areas of the president's economic plan. Some Nigerians speak on the removal of fuel subsidy.
Again, so it's going to affect us. It's going to affect the market price. As I am now, I'm even afraid. I feel like buying whatever I can buy now. But even if I buy now, definitely it's going to still finish one day, and we'll still be back to our initial stage. So it's going to affect us.
I think they should sit down with the regulators and see how they can curb the price down, so that the masses can also, you understand, benefit from the removal of this subsidy.
It's sad and provoking. You can see buying fuel from 195 to 537 naira is uncalled for and highly unfair.
That is the crux.
Well, joining us in our Abuja studio is the chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Adamu Garba. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Right. When the president made that statement on the day of inauguration, the kind of reaction that followed, especially from marketers, fuel stations, came as a surprise to a majority of Nigerians, because he later said that the announcement he made, that it was a matter of the fact that it would take effect by the end of June, talking about the removal of fuel subsidy. And so that people, marketers, and every other stakeholders involved should tread cautiously. But the reaction has come as a huge surprise to Nigerians, and also the matter of the NNPC coming up with a template, despite the statement coming from the president that the matter of fuel subsidy removal begins by the end of June.
Yes, I think that was bold, courageous, and sincere approach to ameliorating or completely removing the monumental tragedy that has befallen the Nigerian economy in the name of fuel subsidy since its introduction in the 1970s. It was supposed to be a temporary measure to be able to at least share some of the boom that was recorded during the oil boom eras, and eventually it became one of the most stable economic program of Nigeria in the name of trying to help the poor by destroying the basis for economic prosperity for the poor. If you talk about the reason why our refineries refused to work for these decades, it was because of fuel subsidy. If you talked about the reason why we deindustrialized in Nigeria, where our industries died for quick cash making opportunity in the oil subsidy regime, it is the oil subsidy. This is a country that currently spent about 18.4 billion naira every day to service consumption. And that not just consumption, but an extreme consumption. It's like we are putting the money in the furnace. It just gets burned without any commensurate value. And that's about $40 million in turn. So when you look at this kind of tragedy, this kind of wastages that has come into the system, I think any president, like the way we have President Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, that took the bold step to try to see to the end of the legal framework that was laid down by the previous administration of the APC, that is trying to push it to the end. I think this is something that Nigerians should comment. everything that has to do with fuel subsidy has reached a point whereby it has almost turned to a looting machine. You will find some people that have no depot, no trucks, no filling station, because they have access to somebody in political power and a briefcase. They will just have access to about 2 million liters, 5 million liters to sell and make money, just like that. You know, so this is not the kind of country we are doing. These are the kind of people we subsidize for. And even if you are talking about subsidy, most of the people that benefit from it are urban dwellers. That is, even if it benefits the larger good, are urban dwellers. That's like 50% of the population of Nigeria. So you are spending nearly 6.6 trillion naira on half of Nigerian population that hardly even get any benefit from it. Why? Because it destroys the industries, it destroys opportunities, it destroys almost everything that is supposed to keep them alive. So this is a very serious problem. That means by neglecting nearly half the population of Nigeria, these 133 million poor Nigerians that are suffering from multidimensional poverty are actually people that don't benefit anything from the system. You know, so we cannot continue to have this kind of regime that seems to go to destroy Nigeria to the point whereby we borrow to burn. How can you go and borrow money just to come and put it in the furnace and burn it in the name of trying to help who? So that is why I believe Nigerians should 100% rally behind the Tinubu administration bold, courageous effort to see to the fact that we reset our economic arrangement so that we can take the right trajectory in our shared prosperity model that is introduced by this new administration. I think we are on the right track, and we should do everything possible to support this government to benefit every Nigerian. It's not about increasing the pump price. I heard some people are complaining. It's about accepting our realities. Our current position is that we are lying to ourselves that we have money. Meanwhile, whatever it is we have, most of the fuel that is even coming into this country is going to neighboring countries to make profit. You know, when you look at the bills, the current value that we pay in our pump price is almost equal to the value that is paid around West African country. That's after removal of subsidy. But prior to that, we have nearly 250% less. So most people that even import oil in Nigeria, instead of exporting it to these Western African countries to sell for more profitability. So who are we subsidizing? So we have to remove this. And as I'm talking to you now, if you ask the NNPC to give you the quantity of PMS that we import in this country, they cannot give you that. Neither the Ministry of Finance, nor Ministry of Petroleum Resources, nor the actual quantity of crude oil we import, of PMS, of refined petroleum product we import in this country. When you ask them to tell you the total number of filling stations that we have, they cannot tell you. So how do we come about 2.8 trillion that we are now demanding? How do you come about this 6.6 trillion that we spend annually to just pay for wastages? How do we account for that? So I believe the government has taken the bold step. Nigerians should celebrate the president that is courageous and decisive enough to be able to take this kind of decision so that we can move forward as a country that will share its prosperity for all.
All right, Adamu, recall that the debate on the removal of subsidy has been on for so many years. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo talked about it, the issue of the need to remove the fuel subsidy. NLC didn't accept that. Under former President Umar Musa Yar'Adua, he brought up the issue. NLC kicked against it. In fact, under President Goodluck Jonathan in 2012, he made the bold move and removed it. But we all saw the reaction to the removal of subsidy in 2012. And then the Buhari administration came and talked about removing it. In fact, at campaigns, he re-emphasized that the subsidy, oil subsidy, was fraud, and everyone thought it was going to go. He couldn't go. Now, we're still on the same debate. All the presidential candidates at the last election in 2023 all agreed that the subsidy, it is time the subsidy has to go. But talk to us basically, what is the difference this time from all of the previous administrations that have said that subsidy has to go and subsidy didn't go?
Yes, the difference is clear. It's the legal framework that is established in the PIA. You know, if you go back to Obasanjo administration, there were a lot of back and forth regarding the PIB, which failed. When Yar'Adua government came, let Yar'Adua, part of the program he had to do was to ensure that PIB is passed. It failed. And when President Jonathan came on board too, he tried to remove the fuel subsidy without any established legal framework. It failed. But with the coming of Buhari administration, you know, the first tenure, because we don't have a compliant National Assembly, and that is why we're really, really advocating that the choice of the party and the choice of the president, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, of National Assembly leadership should be conformed to, we should follow, because we don't need to have those kind of confusion again. So it was the ninth assembly that was compliant, that understood the program of the government, that was able to pass the PIA. So that PIA creates the legal framework for easy removal of oil subsidy. NNPC now is a limited liability company, although it has inherited the corporation characteristics, you know, of the civil service rules that is grossly moribund and inefficient and non-transparent, that I believe for us to continue to perfect this oil subsidy removal, we have to also replace almost all the beneficiaries of the subsidy, you know, within the value chain, including the top leadership of the NNPC. So we have the legal framework now that we need to do, that we need to put in place, that has been put in place, that enables it. And if you check, the removal of oil subsidy did not start with the Tinubu administration. It started with Buhari administration last hour when the PIA was passed and the provision for the budget on the subsidy was not made in this 2023 budget. So that is why it was easy for it to be removed. And almost all the components that is supposed to come against this has been contained in the PIA. So if the labor union and all the other bodies that are pressure groups that don't want the subsidy to go, as we had with the previous administration, now they have a window to go and negotiate, look into this thing, and see how it can benefit the entire value chain. Nobody benefits from this oil subsidy, other than the few people that have access to people that can give them the signature that will make them to extract this money only for themselves. And in most cases, they take this money outside this country to the detriment of the majority of Nigerians. So this is not in any way for the benefit of Nigeria. And if you are a trade union Congress member or Nigerian Labour a Congress member or any of the pressure group member, if you truly care for this country, this is the right time for you to show your own patriotism by rallying behind Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's decision to remove this fuel subsidy. Because we have fought, we have gone against the government from the military to this civilian administration for the past 24 years. There is nothing we record from it other than keep piling up the subsidy regime. During Jonathan administration, we are not even up to ₦1 trillion, you know, for the whole year to pay for subsidy. But now, because of inflationary pressure, we are talking about 6.6 trillion. How can we continue this way? So they know if they truly are fighting for Nigeria, not for some hidden masters from the back end that is funding them to come and confront the interests of Nigerians, if they truly are fighting for the benefit and growth and development of Nigeria, I believe all the pressure groups, the labor union organization, and all the civil society organizations need to rally behind the complete removal and expungement of this oil subsidy regime. That is the only way we can benefit. That is the only way the program of government can come. Before I came, you are on the program of the power agenda of Asiwaju, the Tinubu's administration. It clearly outlined a pathway to navigate Nigeria away from lack of electricity generation to a much more productive economy. So if we can subsidize, we have to look at the areas where we can subsidize. How can we subsidize electricity generation that powers industrialization, that powers productivity? How can we subsidize efficient healthcare system in Nigeria so that we can have healthy workers and healthy children that go to school, that be able to turn out to benefit the entire larger growth and development of Nigeria? How do we subsidize our school system? How do we subsidize production? How do we subsidize in the area of trade? How do we compete globally with the value of the money that we generate in Nigeria by ensuring that we export high amount of precision material that will in turn give us more value as a country to continue to expand our production base, create employment, create jobs opportunities, and impact significantly to the growth and development of our economy. These are the areas where you can bring in subsidization. But the situation whereby you pick this subsidy and put it in a furnace and keep burning it, it's like you are just bringing dollars and putting it in fire and setting it ablaze. That is exactly what subsidy means. It benefits nobody. So the trade union organizations need to rally behind this decision comprehensively. Stop. This is not the time for us to do populist agenda of trying to go and tell Nigerians that the cost of living is high, we should fight. This is the time for all of us to come out and tell Nigerians that this is our reality. Our reality is that the price of oil is not as is being sold to us. Our reality is that we have so many infrastructure deficits that we need excess money to be able to fund, to power our supply lines and bridge the gap between buyers and sellers in our country so that we can enable productivity and grow our economy. And if you look at even the statistics that has been said by World Bank, we need minimum of $3 trillion to be able to power the entire Nigerian infrastructure deficit. How do you expect us to be borrowing to fund subsidy while we are now talking about shares prosperity and economic growth? When Nigerians are getting poorer and poorer by the day at the expense of very few individuals that have access to allocation without any productive base, only briefcase and phone calls to be able to have massive amount of money at the expense of millions of Nigerians. So if the trade union organization truly care for the benefit and growth of this country, and they are truly patriotic and working in the interest of this country, it is high time for them to go and thank the Tinubu administration, thank the president, Bola Tinubu, and follow him consistently to ensure that we remove this thing called the monumental looting machine in the name of oil subsidy.
Right. I believe what the trade organized labor, talking about the NLC and TUC, is saying from their statement is the matter of consultation and the manner in which the government is approaching the removal. They are saying that the government needs to cushion the effect of the removal before looking at removing this totally, removing the subsidy totally. That is what they are saying. They are saying that the government did not have wide consultations involving them with regards to how they can ensure that Nigerians do not feel the impact of this removal.
No, you see, these things, I think they should, this tactics has not worked, you know. Go back to Jonathan's administration. There is something called SHOAP that was supposed to serve as a palliative measure to contain the pressure that will be brought about as a result of the fuel subsidy removal. Has it worked? Does it solve the problem? Where are the massive bus transportation system that was established by SHOAP? Where are all the palliative measures? Where are the several youth enterprise programs that was enabled by Jonathan administration? How do they succeed? Where is the success? You can't solve this monumental challenge, this kind of looting, corrupt system, by just having a gradual approach to removing it. You must eliminate and eradicate it completely. I believe the biggest fight against corruption in this country is removing a fuel subsidy and having a unified exchange rate. This is what President Tinubu decided to do on his first inaugural speech. What a very bold stage. There is nothing that we need to eliminate the entire corruption in this system by doing this. And we already know that having this kind of gradual approach to removal always help us to even pile it much more. As I told you earlier, during Jonathan administration, we have around 900 billion as a subsidy payment. But in the last 8 years of President Buhari, we had up to 6.6 trillion. So how does that save the measures? We are just round robin into a single cycle that keep expanding the pool of consumption, not production. And we cannot do it this way. We can, especially in the highly technological era. We have a president that understood the value of deploying expertise, competency, and technology to eradicate issues. And if we have something called remitter in the system now, we have something called TSA that is able to bring about all the payment system in the digital environment. How can we not digitize the entire value chain of operations of the oil and gas industry so that we will now know exactly the quantity consumed in Nigeria and the quantity that is imported? And one of the problems is that marketers also need to understand that this is now for Nigeria. This is not a time for us to be cutting corners. It is not a time whereby because the government is favoring you, you benefit, and when the government is not favoring you, you lose out completely. It is time for you to truly play in the market of economy. We even have a refinery in Nigeria. So why don't we refine, why don't we allow these kind of opportunities to grow? Do we want Dangote to start importing crude oil to refine in Nigeria simply because we are subsidizing here and he cannot be able to profit? We don't do that. You know, so what we need to do is we have to look at the previous actions that was taken by government and how it felt, and the need for us to take a decisive measure right now and chart a way forward. We can't continue repeating the same thing and expect different results. So it's not about consultation. It's about looking at the wide-ranging engagement that has happened over a period of 24 years with the trade union organizations in Nigeria about this same issue, and the Petroleum Industry Act that was enacted to contain all these interests together in one, in an effort to ensure that we don't repeat this cycle. And the fact that we have a promise keeper as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who took this bold step. And you knew, if you check even the bold step, how it was responded, you know, to by the stock market. Nigerian traders in the stock market made about 1.5 trillion naira in a single day because of these decisive measures of Tinubu administration. This is what we need to look at. So we should forget about all these trying to cut corners or doing something under the seat, or trying to be that I have to be on the table so that I can also be compensated, or my interests need to be favored against Nigerian interests. This is not the time for it. We have grown mature in this economy and in this country, and so many people are suffering. So it is very important for us to expand our productive base that will mainstream the 33% youth employment that we have into a formal economy so that they can be gainfully employed, and enable our production in farmers within the rural community so that we can have productive farming system, enable a lot of economic opportunity for our women, for our young people, for our industries, for manufacturing sector to thrive, so that we can continue to grow. It's not a time for us to be benefiting few, less than 500 people, at the expense of 230 million people. What Tinubu administration did was to stand for 230 million Nigerians, as against the very few that benefit from the tragedy of fuel subsidy. And if they, the trade union, truly care for this country, I think this is the time for them to show their patriotism. They should rally in solidarity with President Bola Tinubu, thank him, appreciate him, and try to work alongside this government for the progress and development of this country. That is actually the best thing they can do if they truly care for this country, not to antagonize or to condemn the decision that they know, we know, everyone knows is long overdue.
All right, it's good to know that perspective of things, especially from the organized labor, because they have been on this and they are insisting that a status quo has to remain for them to go ahead with dialogue. But let me bring this issue of the Dangote refinery that should be in operation from about the end of July to August. A lot of people have said that the Dangote refinery coming up right now will be a game changer and can naturally cushion the impact of the removal of subsidy. I wonder what you see when we're removing fuel subsidy now and Dangote refinery is about to kick off. How much of a change would that be for Nigerians or benefit?
I think it is without removal of fuel subsidy, it is going to be very difficult for the refinery to get even the product it wants. That's actually the truth. Because you need to ask yourself, why do we have 4 refineries in Nigeria that refuse to work? It is because of fuel subsidy. People find shortcut way of making money as opposed to passing it through a process. All you need to do is just to get allocation from someone and you make money. How do you expect to pass this crude in Nigeria where there will be accountability chain to be processed and refined, when you can easily go and make some phone calls and get money? That is why a cartel was created, to do everything possible to destroy any opportunity to have refining in Nigeria. But when you allow market forces to regulate the price of the petroleum product itself in Nigeria. You will give opportunity for people to look at a cheaper way to consume the product. And the cheapest way to consume the product is to allow local refining. Why? Because there is no any shortcut again. You have to do the right thing. You have to follow the procedure. You have to conform to the law. You have to submit to the market forces. You have to do that. There is no way for you to call CBN to give you an allocation of dollars, and there's no way for you to go to one NNPC big man and get some allocation. You have to follow the process. So the way to do that is to ensure that there is no subsidy. So when there's no subsidy, it enables opportunity for us to grow our local refining capacity. If we leave this subsidy, most people will prefer to pack the crude and export it. Why? Because it's a shortcut way of making money. All you need to do is just one allocation. You don't have to go to any office. You're just sleeping in the house. You know somebody, you place a call and you get your money. You become instant billionaire. That's what happened. But with subsidy removal, you have to pass through the procedure. And that is what is even going to help Dangote refinery to be strengthened. Perhaps even strengthening our other local refining. We have Bola refinery coming on board. We have already Nigerian refineries that are there. All we need is just to reject them and bring them and make Nigeria to be refined petroleum product exporting country, not importing refined petroleum product. Because we have the product here, we have to pick it here, refine it here, benefit from the 18 product value within the value chain, and export it to other countries that needs it. The only way to do that is to remove the fuel subsidy. So that's why I see the removal of fuel subsidy as a perfect harbinger to enable Dangote refinery to take its shape. And that we need to put a very strong enforcement strategy to prevent this cartel from sabotaging this effort. Because some of them could even hinder the transmission of the crude from where it is being extracted to get to Dangote refinery. We used to have these issues where, you have vandals that will just vandalize the pipelines that supply this crude simply because it affects their interests. So we have to put a lot of enforcement mechanism. We have to put a lot of structures in place. We have to make sure that we create massive advocacy to prevent this. But as I'm telling you, without the removal of fuel subsidy, it's going to even be very, very difficult for us to be able to refine. In fact, some people are saying that Dangote ended up even importing some crude from other countries, especially the neighboring countries, to refine, simply because the local refining, if subsidy is available, the local crude supply might be in shortage supply, that you will have to get it from other countries to come into Nigeria and refine, simply because of subsidy. But now that the subsidy is gone, I am sure that we have set a baseline, not just for perfecting and growing and expanding the production base in our petroleum refining capacity in Dangote refinery, but also in other subsequent refining projects. In fact, you will see huge foreign direct investment coming into Nigeria. That money that we extract and take it out will now have to come into Nigeria to be processed, to be refined, to provide job opportunity, to pay tax before we export this product outside this country. I believe that removal of fuel subsidy is a game changer to the entire Nigerian economy. That is why there is no responsible, careful, and patriotic Nigerian that should not rally behind President Asiwaju Bola Tinubu to ensure the success of removal of the fuel subsidy.
Right. Another thing that is key to the success of the removal of the subsidy is the matter of confidence in the government's intention to what it has said it intends to do with the monies. It says that it will be investing the monies in public infrastructure, education, healthcare, and job creation. By way of educating the people, our viewers, how should the government go about all of this that it has planned in such a way that people will know and repose confidence in the government that its intention to remove subsidy was in their best interest after all?
Yes, these are the very easy things. If you look at the program of action set out by the Tinubu administration, even from the Renewed Hope manifestos and all his promises during the campaign, massive infrastructure investment is required. Agricultural transformation plan is required, industrial transformation is required, manufacturing system have to come, we have housing policy. There are so many activities that are needed. We have a lot of renewable energy investment that is coming, and also other energy opportunities like coal, like bitumen. So there are a lot of energy opportunities that needed investment. But this money now get chalked up, you know, for paying for consumption. You pay like $40 million on daily basis on consumption. So when you offset these monies, you can be able to go to rural communities and be able to enable them to succeed. Like on monthly basis, we may save up to 400 million naira per local government in Nigeria. So imagine investing 400 million naira month over month in each local government, in each of the 774 local governments in Nigeria. How much economic opportunity are going to create? Standard hospitals that enables them to be health-wise, to be stronger, to be more healthier, to be able to be more productive. Standing schools that will enable all of 13 million out of school children to go back to school responsibly. Standing renewable energy infrastructure. God has blessed us with massive sunlight in Nigeria. So we can maximize on solar energy and enable this mini electricity consumption and mini grid consumption in these rural communities. So they don't have to move from one long location to another to be able to power something. Most of them have small grinding machines that they need to use to grind their things. They don't have to climb one long vehicle to travel to one long distance. They don't need this. And don't forget again, part of the program of action of Asiwaju, he even mentioned it in his inaugural speech, was setting up a commodity board. So it means that most of the farm produce that are being farmed in rural communities will have their way to the central pool where it can serve as a commodity, you know, for exchange, in exchange for one particular commodity or the other, or in exchange for this commodity for some, to back up even our naira for our foreign transactions. So these are very fantastic programs. So you pick these monies and channel them into productive base that will, in the short to medium term, will enable massive economic opportunity for people, removing people out of poverty, enabling our true consumption size, our true PPP, this purchasing power parity, you know, growing our GDP size, and expanding our economic pool extensively, whereby every single investor in the world will find appetite to bring his money into Nigeria, as opposed to taking it to any other country. In fact, if you look at the economic trajectory globally, you will see that most of these countries are saturated. When you look at their exchange, their interest rate is somewhere near zero. Some of them are even flat. Some of them are even minus, simply because they don't have consumption. But here is the country that have almost 70% of its people within high consumption rate, young people. But we cannot do that when we have a clock into the machine that is sucking every other economic opportunity dry. So that is why if we offset these monies, it's going to help to enable that particular production base, empower our rural communities to come into the mainstream economy and grow the economic pie for shared prosperity. Again, the same thing called NNPC can be liberalized, can now be picked, and we can even plug it on the global stock exchange if it is properly transparent. After all, now we have technologies. I'm a tech person. I know how we can be able to deploy extensive technology to create complete plain glass transparency in all oil consumption in this country, like many other tech people. This is a very easy thing. And that is what will give NNPC its own value. So you can pick it itself and even plug it in global stock exchange and attract dollars that will come and make massive investments in Nigeria very possible. We can attract Chinese investors to come and invest in Nigeria. We can attract Russian investors. We can attract Middle Eastern investors to come into Nigeria. Most of these people have demography that is shrinking. So they will look for another market where their production can be consumed. And the only way to get this kind of market is to Africa. And Africa, when you're coming to Africa, you're coming to Nigeria. But we cannot achieve these things if we still have something called subsidy that is a complete monumental fraud. It has to go. And not just it, the entire value chain of the entire subsidy regime have to be replaced by something that will accept transparency, by something that will accept accountability, by something that will ensure that these resources that are being generated from this subsidy gets into the right channel for the benefit of the economy and for the benefit of all Nigerians. So I believe the program of action of the Tinubu administration already catered for the need for a lot of investment into empowering Nigerians. And that is why the only way to do that is to ensure that we remove all looting machine structures and enable these monies to go directly to benefit Nigerians. And I believe that is even the reason why this has become a priority in this administration.
We must thank you, Adamu Garba, a chieftain of the All Progressive Congress, for your time on the program. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome.